Give us a little bit of an intro. And then Lauren, can you record it?
Yep, I just started.
Okay, got it. So here we go. I actually met Jared. I think Jared, was that in Terry's black and white class?
Yes, it was.
I was TAing. And so you were in the back, sitting in the back left. And so that's where it happened. That's where I met you.
That's where the magic.
Yes, yeah. Sparks were flying. And then actually, incidentally, Cynthia Ellis, who sat next to you, is our speaker for February.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yes. So that's going to be exciting because she's going to feature some work. I'm not going to ruin it. I'm not going to spoil it. But she's coming up. So stay tuned. So Jared, after graduating with a Bachelor's of Science in Applied Health Science from Bowling Green State University, which is in Ohio.
Yes.
Jared moved to Ann Arbor to follow his passion for photography. His focus is street style photography with an emphasis on film work, mostly medium and large format based. In addition to working with Camera Mall, Jared is currently pursuing a master's in urban planning at Wayne State in Detroit. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jared P. What's the P stand for?
Paul.
Jared Paul Haas.
All right, everyone. So,
Oh,
can everybody see my screen? Does it look good?
Yeah, we can see it.
Awesome.
Yeah, it looks great, Jared.
Awesome. So,
and then if everyone, sorry, Jared, if everyone could mute their microphones, we'll have Jared's presentation and then afterwards we'll do questions. Okay.
all right. So, I just wanted to start out with a little quote. So I photograph to find out what something will look like photographed. Gary Winogrand. So kind of my whole like emphasis on photography, it comes from me wanting to experiment originally and try different things out. I started out in high school in a film and darkroom class, and I immediately was learning about exposure, but my teacher gave us like a very limited view, like just how to make a print and how to develop your film. And I was curious. I thought it was amazing. So I just immediately started reading all these books and watching all these videos and trying to figure out how to do different things in the darkroom. So I ended up taking 2 semesters of film and darkroom class, which wasn't allowed, but I convinced my guidance counselor to let me do it. So why film? Partially because I love experimenting. My bachelor's degree is in applied health science. So I worked in a bunch of labs all through college, chemistry labs, physics labs, all types of different things. So experimenting with different elements, different things regarding chemistry, making my own film development processes, and learning what that can do was really my inspiration. So my second reason I shoot film is actually because I'm colorblind. And so I prefer to shoot in black and white. My color blindness isn't like a totally black and white color blindness, but I lack the ability to see greens. So that's a really big thing for humans and the human eye. So it's really tough for me sometimes when I'm taking photos with color. So I prefer to use film and color film I can do sometimes, but most of the stuff I'm going to show you tonight is all based in black and white. So starting out, I have always owned a film camera. My first camera was a hand-me-down camera that I got from my grandma in 2006. And I immediately just went out and started exploring and started taking pictures. I don't have a bunch of them anymore because unfortunately one of my hard drives corrupted. So I have the film negatives, but this is one of the only examples I could find of my early work. It was more focused on rural communities and portraits of the people in the town that I lived in, and then just landscapes of rural Ohio. So what photography means to me. So photography going through college was a means of work. I worked as a photographer. I shot weddings, portraits and events. But really, like during college, I started to struggle with like the load of schoolwork. I was studying a pretty intensive schedule, and then so I didn't have much time to take photos, even for work. So then it kind of just changed into something that was fun for me, something that I did to go out and escape and like figure out and think through things that were going on in my life. So a lot of my work really sometimes can be rooted in feeling and emotion. A lot of it looks very serious, but like I put this picture here because I wanted people to know that I do have a little bit of like a sense of humor. So a really big event and what I'm mainly going to talk about tonight was a lot of what happened this summer. So this summer, as everybody is aware, like the nation broke out into protests sparked by George Floyd's death. And that was something that like I really like was a big part of in Detroit, like being there and protesting every day after work. I would immediately drive to Detroit and just be there with my first aid kit in my backpack and my camera in case something happened. So a lot of these images were images that I took while I was there. Um, I just find like the experience of being like on the street and taking pictures and like blending in to be like really, really satisfying. So a lot of my work, a lot of the people have no clue that I'm even taking a picture. And I really don't know what my pictures are going to look like till I'm done a lot of times because of my shooting style. I shoot from the hip or from like the center of my chest rather than holding my camera up to my eye a lot. And I think that one quote that I've always like really enjoyed, I can't remember it exactly, but it was about like if your photo doesn't look good, then you're not close enough. And I think that that's really something that has like been inspirational to my work, is knowing that like being close to something, and that's like bigger than just like a distance thing, but being close to things and finding things that are meaningful to you to photograph is really important. So there was just like a lot of tension in the environment when I was there. So I was just documenting what I was seeing, and just like I was close for as long as I could be, but eventually I wasn't able to be close anymore. And then there were just a lot of just little things that sometimes I see on the street and they just spark like I want to take a photo. And I'm not really sure why sometimes, but then sometimes like I really do know exactly what isn't like what is triggering me to take the photo. Another reason I really like film is because the ability to be able to do weird things, the different types of cameras and the different formats. So I don't really crop any of my photos. I just use the cameras and I use different formats to get different looks. So depending on like what type of work I'm doing, I pull out a different camera for different things like that. And then I do take photos in color every now and then, like I said. I'm not the biggest fan of color, but I do enjoy it. And also some of my work, I also was experimenting for a long time with like doing like exposures in complete darkness on film and then developing them for like hours and hours on end to see what I could get. And it like produced this really large grain image that like I found really like fascinating to print in the darkroom. It's really hard to be able to show it on like a computer, but the textures that the film renders is really amazing. Another thing I love about film is like this giant community that we have like revolving around it. So I do this thing with a bunch of different photographers from all around the world called film swapping. So I take photos on usually what I like to use is like slide film. I load the film into my camera and then I take a Sharpie and I draw a box around where the shutter is for that first exposure. And then I, of course, close the back, wind the film through, and then I take a bunch of photos. And then I like rewind the film, put it in an envelope, and I send it usually halfway across the world. And somebody will put it in their camera, line it up, and do the same thing and take photos. So this photo that you can see right here is from the record store when it was downtown, and then a picture in Russia as well. So I do this a lot because it's just really like you never know what's going to happen and you don't know like what you're going to get. So like this person had no clue like what I had taken photos of, and it just like inspires community, and it's a way to like reach out to other people and other artists and share an experience. So this is some work that I actually did in color as well on film. Some of this stuff was the portraits were actually a paid thing that I did a while back for some people. I really like enjoy taking portraits of people, but given COVID, it's kind of hard to right now. And then inspiration. So I draw inspiration from tons of different sources. I am constantly like reading nonstop about all the sorts of different techniques when it comes to darkroom, developing film, and then also just like because I do like work in in the camera industry, like I'm always seeing these pros and what they're doing, whether it be like really famous people or just people who are my customers. I'm constantly absorbing other people's work and being able to like talk through processes with them. So I'm constantly gaining information from other people's experiences as well as sharing my own. So these are just some people who inspire me. Some of these people are like really well known. Some people are just like friends of mine who I really enjoy their work. David Turnley, as many people know, is like a really, really well-renowned photographer from Ann Arbor, actually. He currently lives in Ann Arbor and he teaches at the University of Michigan. And his work and David as a human are just phenomenal. And then also like there's another one that I would suggest that people check out is Jan Schlegel. He's a German photographer. All of his work is based in black and white and done with like different toning processes to make prints of different skin tones, and his work is phenomenal. And then Aperture Magazine and Aperture Conversations are just two things that I read like quite frequently that I really like draw inspiration from. And then this is my Instagram handle and my website. My website has tons of information linked onto it. Sometime I really need to update my portfolio that's on there. So I've got some of my older bodies of work on there, but I've been working to upload newer bodies of work. And some of the stuff that I shared tonight was the first time I've ever shared with anybody. I'm just so busy with grad school and work that I don't get to post much.
That was incredible. And I would, if you don't mind, can you go back to the beginning? Because I know we had a couple of people that kind of came in, sprinkled in.
Yeah.
And if you don't have to say anything, but if we could just go through each of your images just to have people absorb them. And so maybe like count to 5 or count to 3 or whatever. But just give people a chance to look at the image.
Hey, Jared, this one reminds me of what is her name? Virginia Meyer? Meyer?
Yeah.
Vivian.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the way the self-portrait is sort of embedded in the larger image. That's really great. And I love how like there's the little image of you in the mirror, but then you can see the larger image of you reflected in the glass of the window, presumably.
She's one of my biggest inspirations, actually. So my brother lives in Chicago, and I used to go out there and visit him all the time. And I actually like watched the documentary with him one time when I was in Chicago, and that like is what kind of like re-sparked all of this. I immediately ran out and got a TLR camera, just a cheap TLR camera, so I could be just like Vivian Meyer.
Oh, Vivian, right. That documentary was amazing. We just watched that a couple of weeks ago, and I'd been meaning to for a long time. And it was so interesting, like just like the huge body of work that she left behind. And then also the complexity of her personality was just like really fascinating. So yeah, this made me think of her. This is very cool.
Thank you.
Jared, can you say a little bit more about how you do the film swapping with people around the world?
Yeah, let me grab a camera really quick. So it's really easy to explain.
And so I think he called it film flopping, right?
Film swapping, I think.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
call it
Yeah, I
film
want to hear more about
swapping?
that too. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
So this is a roll of film that I currently have like sitting on my shelf getting ready to ship out. But so I just draw a little box on
Yep.
the film. And so what that lines up to be, you really kind of have to use an SLR to do this,
Hmm.
but it just lines up with where the shutter plane is.
Yep.
And then I take pictures all the way through the roll. And then just as normal, if I'm shooting a 100 ISO film, I rate it at 200 ISO. So I like compensate for the fact that it's
Yep.
going to get exposed on twice.
Yep.
Shoot all the way through it, rewind it, and just leave the leader out, and then somebody just.
But how do you know who, like, what is the organization, or like, how do you get connected with people to do the swapping part?
So like it was something that started on Instagram. Like I would say Instagram's more of a social media tool now than it used to be. Like I
Mhm.
started doing this in like 2013, 2014. So it's been a
Mhm.
while, like a long time. But there used to be Instagram pages just dedicated to helping you find other people to do this with. So what I
So
used to do is
you specifically like hooked up with somebody in Russia to exchange film with,
yep.
and then you exchanged, like, after it was processed, you exchanged the results of that.
Yep.
Yeah. And do you stay in contact with the person that you swapped with?
Yeah, I swap regularly with like 4 or 5 people actually.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, one of my best like friend, like I would say he's one of my best friends even. Like his name's Jules. He lives in Paris, France, and I like have swapped many rolls of film with him. It's really funny because I posted a picture of David Turnley on my Instagram one time, and he said that he had noticed him from a restaurant like around the corner from where he works one time.
Oh, that's
So
hilarious.
it's just like
yeah.
how small this world is.
Yeah, how small it really is. Yeah.
But it is really just amazing, like what you can create. Sometimes I will admit, like I usually send 3 or 4 rolls at a time. Some of them come back garbage, but like the ones
Sure.
that do come back are really, truly beautiful.
Yeah,
And so
that seems like an
film-
amazing way to build community around the world, around, shooting film specifically. It's awesome.
Yeah. And so wait, film flopping or swapping?
Swapping with an S.
Swapping, film swapping. Okay.
There's no flopping involved.
I know,
so.
I apologize. I'm getting stuck on that.
This may be a bit of a stretch, but it's sort of like it's a whole new way to do a study abroad, you know.
Yeah,
It's hilarious. Yeah.
and too, like that's one thing that has been pretty amazing throughout COVID. I've been able to still send rolls of film off to my friends. So like I'm still able to keep in contact, and it is kind of like
Yes.
in the sense that I'm halfway traveling, and
Yeah.
somebody's halfway traveling here as well.
I see your comment stuff, and that's exactly right. It's like
Mhm.
it equals the exquisite corpse
Yeah.
kind of idea. That's awesome. So not to kind of ask more questions about that, but I will, because I'm kind of really excited about it. So do you guys, the people that you swap film with, Jared, do you, is there a theme or anything, or is it just completely open every time? Or has there been any communication of like, okay, like of what is going to come together on a particular role?
Yeah, so sometimes we do like really intentionally collaborate. Like for instance, with my one friend, we had a whole session where I took photos of just plants, like leaves and
Yep.
flowers and stuff on like very solid backgrounds.
Yeah.
Black background, making it so everything around the outside will be his image,
Yep.
white, making it so that it like
Yeah.
kind of just gets rid of everything. So like very intentional things all the way down to like no limits. And sometimes I even have photographers who I'll send stuff back and forth with that they'll give me a list of every single exposure, what they took.
Oh,
So I know
interesting.
exactly what
So
I'm
then you
shooting.
can kind of plan what you're doing with it. Yeah, that's really
Yep.
interesting.
So it can
Very
be
cool.
as involved or as little involved as you want
Yeah.
it to be. And that's the beauty of it too.
Yeah.
I've wanted to I do it with people frequently. So if anybody ever wants to do it, like all you have to do is get a hold of me. I'd be more than happy to like trade rolls of film with people.
Awesome.
But it's like, I wanted to do something in Ann Arbor, like a competition or like even an exhibition that's just like, hey, this is how you do this. Go out and do
Yeah.
it. I'll take care of developing your roll of film, like, and then I'll pick a couple good photos and we'll have like a show. But because of COVID, no shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you
So
for that.
Yeah, thank you. And we do have some more questions from people, but if you can just go through a little bit more for the people that missed it. It's so incredible that this is from it's from this past summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah. Barbara had mentioned that having a virtual show just with the film swapping work would be cool.
That would.
And so someone had asked about Jared's Instagram. That's his handle for Instagram. If you guys want to write that down, we can put it in the chat too. So yeah, if we can stop share for now and we can always go back. But kind of get into some questions. And I know if people have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat, or you can just kind of pop in. Mike Quigley, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I just wondered what your favorite films, black and white films are, and then developers, related.
Yeah, so when it comes down to film, I primarily shoot Tri-X, and I primarily develop with HC110. If I am pushing Tri-X, I will use D76 to develop instead.
Great, thanks.
It just maintains a little bit more detail in the shadows when I'm developing.
Have you ever tried Rodinal?
I have. I really do like it. And I have a recipe to make it on my own. And if the prices keep going the way that they are, I'm going to be crushing Tylenol in my mortar and pestle.
Yeah. Got to get the hydroquinone.
Yeah.
And then Joel, did you have a question?
Yeah, actually, I've got two for you, Jared. So one is kind of on the technical side in a way, and the other is aesthetic. So I'll start with the aesthetic question, I think, and that is, what emotion, given how you're developing, what emotion are you trying to project, say, in those street scenes, right, from Chicago? Would you just talk a little bit about how you're taking your feelings and moving that interpretively into your processing style?
Yeah. A lot of the stuff that I did this summer, those photographs from Detroit this summer, I think are the protest photos are the ones you're talking about, Joel? Okay. A lot of those, like, necessarily my style and stuff. That goes for how I'm interpreting other people's emotion in that sense. So like I'm kind of viewing like that type of work as like I'm trying to like capture a feeling or like something like that from like what somebody else is feeling or what somebody else is experiencing or what this looks like for somebody else, what this means to somebody else. And some of those photos, like, you know, positioning myself where I did when I took the photos, like how I took the photos, most of those were shot from the hip, because I was trying to like not like devalue a lot of the emotion that was there. I wasn't trying to make it about me, the guy with the camera. I was trying to like keep it concealed and be there. And like it was just moments that I saw that really triggered emotions that I was taking photos of. I don't know if that answers your
No,
question, but that's
it
kind of
does.
like
And
how
it
I-
leads right into the other question, which is how do you photograph from the chest, from the hip, and still find an accurate focus and framing? Your
Yeah.
images are wonderful. So I'm just curious how you figure that out.
So it comes down to really getting to know your equipment, and really getting familiar with your equipment. So like I have like the mentality, like when I go out and I'm going to do something or I'm going to intentionally be shooting on the street, I take two things. I take a camera body and I take, well, two lenses and one camera body, or sometimes two camera bodies. But I take a 28 millimeter lens and a 50 millimeter lens because I know what those look like, what the frame lines look like in my head. It's just about really then getting like the orientation and the angle of the camera correct, so that you kind of know where the plane, like getting it on level plane, I guess. Because once you get an idea of like what those frame lines look like or those frames look like from your eye, you can just position the camera in front of you the same distance out from your body, and it's just from a different perspective a little bit. And it also comes from too, like, to be completely honest, this sounds really, really nerdy, but like I used to put my camera on a tripod and stand next to it, like at my hip level or at my waist level, and then get down and look through the viewfinder and see what it was looking at. So I knew if I was like using my leg as a tripod, like, or a monopod, I guess, and holding my camera against my leg, I would know like where it is, because my arm is always extended the same amount down. So it's just like kind of like learning your body. And I know that sounds really technical, but like I'm not good at visualizing things without actually doing them. So that's how I had to do it.
Those, I think, I find your images very, very powerful. The images of the police so close and obviously stressed. And the image of the drummers, you're right there. You know, you
Mhm.
look like you're just a few feet away, and I'm just impressed. I'm just impressed with that.
Yeah, that photo of the drummers, those two gentlemen were the first people, like it was like the second day of protesting in Detroit. They were the first people, they were leading people onto the freeway when the protests took over the freeway. There were only two people behind me in front of me when I took that picture. I like had to like I didn't like I like ran up to the front and like took it really quick and then like went off to the side, of course, but it was very intense. Like there was a lot of intense emotion and there was a lot going on like at that moment in time.
So
You're
great question.
fantastic. Thank you.
Great questions. And so I had talked with Jared a bit before his presentation tonight. And Jared, you shared with me how you got into photography and really what it does for you. Can you share that with the group?
Yeah, so photography, like I had mentioned a little bit earlier in the beginning too, like I was gifted a camera when I was younger by my grandma. I was bored, as the kids say, one summer. And my grandma gave me a camera and she was just like, you know, go take some pictures, go make something with this. So I would just went out and I would take it everywhere with me. I was the kid in college who was not a photography major that always had a like little TLR strapped around my neck walking to class, even in the middle of winter. Like I always had a camera on me. And it just really became a way for me to like express my feelings, express my emotions, process things. I would just go out and walk around. because that's pretty much what I do as a street photographer. I just go out, walk around and observe. And when something catches my eye or sparks an emotion, I like interact with that, or try to. So it just started out as a way to like use my time, and creative energy. And I love developing film too. I'm a
Mhm.
nerd when it comes to that stuff. I love being in the dark.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Obviously you're a huge film guy. So can you share more about film versus analog versus digital and why?
Yeah, and I don't feel that one is superior to another.
Uh-huh.
I think that most important, and I don't even think that like a nice camera, whether it be on a phone, a full frame, brand new mirrorless camera, whatever you have, like the best tool is the one you have with you. So like, I think for me, the reason why I gravitate more towards film is because I always have. I'm colorblind, and I love black and white. And there's just something about like having a consistent knowledge of what's going into my camera. I know when I throw a roll of Tri-X in my camera exactly what it's going to look like as long as I expose it right every single time.
Mhm.
So it's consistency for me. And for a while too, it was like the fun part of like the side of film. Like there's so many different kinds of films you can try. There's so many awesome things you can do with film, but it really does come down to like now it's more of like the workflow and the consistency is something that I enjoy. It's like my little meditation.
So you really appreciate the process.
100%.
Yeah. And I don't want to just, if anyone has questions, feel free to shoot them out. But I also wonder too, if you were to give your work, like if 3 words for your work, what would those words be?
So I guess that's really hard, Stephanie. Even though like, yeah, that's really hard. A lot of it has to do with emotion, intention, and visualization. Like a lot of my work like has to do with like pre-visualized thoughts and thoughts about different things. When I'm starting a project, even though most of the time I use a consistent type of film now, even like I usually start a project and I start thinking from that end first. I'm like, okay, what do I want to do and what do I want it to look like? What like types of materials am I going to use to do this? And like how am I going to make like use like every type of film stock and everything has a different look to it. So like, how am I going to use that to my advantage? So like my creative process is a lot of pre-visualization. When I'm on the street, it is too, because I'll sit somewhere sometimes for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Even like when it's freezing cold out like it is right now, I'll sit somewhere with my camera just propped up, waiting for somebody to walk what I know is in my frame to snap a picture, and then I walk off. So I'll stand there and drink my coffee for 20 minutes in downtown Detroit, waiting for one single person to walk into my frame in the exact spot I want to, and then I walk away. And it's like, sometimes it's like I'm manipulating a moment or time to my advantage, but really it's just like the pre-visualization and thought.
That's awesome. And so are you a patient person?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. It sounds like it. And then go ahead. Go ahead, Susan.
Well, first I want to point, there's some questions in the chat. So I don't know if you want to
Okay.
go first and then.
Oh, no, you can go. Go ahead.
So Jared, thanks for sharing your pictures. Very inspirational. I was wondering how do you get your pictures out? What do you do to have the world see these pictures and have an impact with your pictures?
I will say that's probably the part of the process that I'm the worst at. I have like a lot of times I'll take photos, I'll make some photos on some film, and then I'll go into my dark toilet, as I call it, and I'll make some prints, and then they go into a box and they sit there. So that's like my work, like the thing I'm the worst at. And 2, like I like to show people things. Like I like to be like, hey, like, so like me sharing photos previously would be like going and getting coffee with people and friends and talking about my photos. A lot of my work I keep to myself. I'm not sure why. I just like am really bad about getting it out there, I guess. I have a website and everything. I am a procrastinator. Maybe I'm too patient with myself.
No,
I think that's taking the
I think
Vivian
more
Mayer
people need to see your
inspiration a
pictures
step
there.
too far.
I agree, Don. I mean, if we're gonna be honest with ourselves, like this is my backlog right now. Like I have a lot of film backlog right now.
Well, I'd say more people need to see your pictures, Jared. So
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And so then I wanted to ask you a bit about your studies with your master's degree. How do you envision urban planning? I mean, I can obviously assume the connection, but I would rather ask you about it.
Yeah. So a lot of my like more recent work especially is like very socially motivated. I'm a very socially motivated person. And so urban planning for me, I walk around cities all the time. I'm going into neighborhoods like for photography and stuff. I'm going and taking pictures in these places that I'm like I don't know much about. So a lot of times I'm observing things, trying to see where people go, what people are doing, so that I can make photos that actually have content and subject matter and like evoke something. So like for me, like interacting with those environments, I want to take it a step further. I want to be like the person who's like going into communities and like interacting with people and figuring out what they need, whether it's like a bus stop or a library. They need like assistance in some way. Like that's what I want to do. So like
Mm.
my photography is very much so like interacting with different spaces and different people. And I would like to like, I've always been interested in like how cities work and how they function. So primarily target area is transportation. So observing where people go, what people do, like it kind of fits in with my like street photography atmosphere.
Totally. And does anyone else have any questions about that or? Oh yeah, Andrea.
Going to share, I was going to go into urban planning and my undergraduate thesis was in urban planning. And it's really funny because one of my thesis advisors was like, a good idea would be just take a bunch of photos of downtown Ann Arbor, like legit. They were like, just document downtown Ann Arbor. I didn't even live in Ann Arbor at the time. And to think of what can change over time. I saw a lot of that like in your work of, okay, you're documenting what could be emotions of the city structures and the people in them. But very powerful. It made me think like 20 years back. It's kind of crazy to think of what changes over time. Awesome.
Cool. And then Anne, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. I was curious. I hadn't realized that Jared had this background in chemistry. I was thinking, oh, that really kind of might explain a lot, because I think it seems to me you're going to approach film differently if you understand the chemistry behind it than if you don't. So I was wondering if he wanted to share something about how his understanding of chemistry might have influenced his style, his vision, etc., as a photographer.
Yeah, so it comes down a lot to actually like a really like nerdy side of it. Like I have this book and it's written about the chemistry of film and film photography. It's called Way Beyond Monochrome, but it's before any digital processing like was really around. It has like instructions for like the first Photoshop in the back. There's like a bonus chapter for it. But it pretty much just describes like how making these different minute like alterations in like temperature, dilution, and things like that can be used like similarly to like altering curves, altering areas of like the range of contrast and things like that. So it was really just like, at first it was a challenge, like, can I actually do this? Like if I play around with this and mess around with this, like, am I actually going to be able to achieve these results? Like, and it was like magic before my eyes when I was working like and making my own prints all the time. It was like, oh my gosh, like you can make these minute changes to how you develop film and it will make like this impact. So I really just kind of like made my own way of developing film. And it's kind of funny because I was developing film one time in the WCC lab and Terry came up to me and he goes, hey, like, you're not doing that right. You should do that. Like, you should be agitating a little bit more. And I was like, oh, no. Like, I don't want to, like, I want to do this different. Like, because I've grown to find this way that makes my images just kind of look a little bit different than everybody else's.
Yeah.
So throughout all of this, what do you find, and this is kind of a very vague, broad question, but what do you find challenging about the craft?
I'm really challenged with organization, to be completely honest. I think that if I was more organized when it came to my photos, like just even setting this up, like selecting the images that I did, like it took me way too long for one, but like I like that's the most challenging thing for me. I love the action of getting out there and shooting. I love the action of developing film. Like I love all of that stuff. But it's just I wish I had more time. That's the biggest like challenge for me, is that I wish I had more time. I wish I could do it all the time. I wish I didn't have to go to work. I could just go and take pictures all day and like walk around and then make prints. But
Yeah. So for anyone that's a budding photographer, or even for someone who's experienced, do you have words of wisdom or advice, or in the spirit of inspire, ways to inspire people?
yeah, so I'm actually gonna like use this as a little bit of an exercise really quick, but like how many people who are in here right now can reach out and grab their camera right this minute? Like how many people have their camera that close? That's how it should be. Like if you want to learn and you want to grow and stuff like that, your camera should always be like right there, like immediately able to be like in your hand. That's how I've like really like learned to like intentionally take good like or take photos that I like or inspire me at least. I take it with me everywhere. I walked into a coffee shop this morning, and right when I walked in, the first thing the barista said, they only see me once a week. I was in Detroit, and the first thing the barista said is, "Where's the camera?" Because it was like behind my back, and I had it like in my bag. Like I always have it with me. It's just like something that is really important. And two, just learning your gear too. Like I think a lot of people think about things like in photography. One of the great things about photography is that there's a million different things that have a million different purposes. But really, like if you learn to like use something as like a tool, like you'll create your own style, you'll create your own look. And like once you really get familiar with your gear, that's when your work starts to like, you're not constantly learning how to use your gear. You're not constantly learning how to do something new. You're like honing in on your craft, and you can create some really amazing things.
All right. So always have your camera. So we had a question, if the iPhone, if you consider that a camera.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Any type of camera is a camera.
Any type of camera.
I
And then
think the most important thing is just having something with you, like, but consciously knowing you have it there, like being conscious of the fact that your iPhone is a camera. Like that's the main thing.
okay. And then two, knowing your gear. And then someone had mentioned or asked about do you have a private darkroom?
So I have a makeshift dark toilet right now. I have a small enlarger in my bathroom, and I have a Jobo that I can use to help me process like my large format film, because it can be quite tedious to get the correct agitation. But I don't have as big of a setup as I used to. I used to have a really nice, like really large private setup that could accommodate 3 or 4 people in.
Okay. And then so we were talking about inspiration, and I'm curious about other forms of art. So you do photography, but do you do other things as an outlet?
So like, I will say that one of my favorite things is actually something I don't do that often, but my brother is a glass blower. So I actually I've gone in the past and helped him. That's just phenomenal. 3D art and me don't really get along. I'm not the greatest at it, but helping is really fun. And watching the process is really fun. I've gone and taken photos of it before. I write a bit. I write short stories every now and then. I write poetry if I feel like it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and sometimes I write stuff to go with like a body of work. Um,
Mhm. Cool. And then and so glass blowing, that's unique. I haven't
Yeah.
really heard that all that often. The other question too is just with COVID, how are you finding that?
So when when COVID first started, I was actually living in a co-op with 150 other people in Ann Arbor. But the really amazing thing, and I immediately like quarantined myself into my room only. And I worked from
Did you
home
just
with
say 150 people?
yeah, there were
Yeah.
150 people. And I will say, like, about a month and a half into COVID, we were down to like 80 people. Like, I don't mean like we lost them, like we didn't lose them. They just went home.
Okay.
But like we were down to like 80 people, and by the end of the summer, it was down to like 40. But we had a dark room in the co-op that I was in. It had been converted into a recycling receptacle room to sort cans and bottles, but I immediately like cleaned it out and like started to process my own film, set up my little studio tent in there. So I was taking like doing some large format studio macro work in there, and that's how I survived COVID. And photo walks too. I lived right off of North Campus,
Mhm.
so I would just walk around, like take a 10-minute break every day, and walked around and took photos. I actually found a roll of film, like sorting through all of this, that was just related to selfies that I had taken from a tripod when COVID first started, because I was like, how long am I going to be locked in my room?
That's a very just like concrete thing, photo walks. I mean, it is funny that you have the selfies as well, but I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty tangible thing to share with people. Take a photo
Always.
walk.
I like, and like, one of my favorite things before COVID was literally going and getting coffee. Like, I made it a goal of mine to get coffee with a different photographer, whether it be somebody I know or somebody I don't know. Every week, I would go and
Mhm.
have a cup of coffee, talk with somebody, and then, usually walk around for an hour or so afterwards.
Mhm.
It was really, really a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And we have everyone knows how big I am on time, but we have 6 minutes to go. And I wanted to share a couple of links with everyone, but I wanted to ask Jared one last question. And then if anyone has questions, we'll stick around in the Zoom room, as I like to call it. And the last question though that I have is, Jared, this is a tough one. But let's say you're how old?
I'm 25.
Yeah, only 25. So if the 35-year-old Jared, like what do you envision 35-year-old Jared doing and being?
With the state of the world right now, I'll give you a funny answer and then I'll give you a serious answer. So my funny answer is that 35-year-old Jared will be walking around with a walker like a crotchety old man, complaining because there's no more film left to shoot. I'm just kidding. But in reality, but in 10 years, where would I like to be? I would like to be working for a large municipality or the government.
Uh-huh.
And I would like to be doing something to do with transportation planning. Ideally, if I could, I would be working with like figuring out a network of like some type of rail throughout the United States.
Some type of rail.
Like light rail or some type of like passenger transportation. I'm really into transportation infrastructure.
Awesome. Um, so that's a great dream, and we would be really, really blessed to have you in that role. And I have so the two links that I'm sharing, they're from Don. And Don, do you want to share about that?
Yeah, they're from the English department at WCC. Tom Zimmerman is the lead faculty in that area of the college, in the general education area of the college. And he publishes the Huron River Review on an annual basis. And this is an award-winning, a multi-award-winning, eclectic collection of poetry, prose, short stories, photography, drawings, all sorts of things that are produced by students at WCC. And he has an annual call for entries. And then there's a contingent link in there that's sort of related to it. It's a different project. I forget the name of it escapes me right now, but he sent me both of those links. But both of them are calls for entry, inviting photo students to submit work for consideration, to be juried, and whether it gets in or not, we will find out in several weeks. So I strongly encourage you to submit stuff, color, black and white, doesn't matter. Nice.
So last call, does anyone have any last question for Jared or any comment?
I'll ask one last one. Actually, I have lots, but I'll find you later. Your work last summer with the riots, social documentary, right? Basically, it's social documentary. You're interested in urban planning, transportation. If you could accomplish, so just imagine there's no limit, not money, not time, not anything. If you could change the world in any way through your image creating, in any way, no limits, what would you do? What would your dream be that you could do?
I think there's a huge awareness issue with like clean drinking water, like in general. Like I know that we talk about it all the time, but I don't think that people really understand how big of a deal it is and how big of a deal it's becoming. There are people in the United States that don't have clean drinking water, and we regard ourselves as like one of the most advanced like nations. But also like that's one of the number one causes of death worldwide for people under 12 years old. So like it's a huge deal. I would love, like, if I could do anything with my life, I would be traveling as a photographer like regularly, and doing like old style like reporting photography. Like it doesn't happen that way anymore. Like there's not many photographers who actually travel around and take photos, because there's photographers who can work remotely everywhere. So I guess I have like this old school dream of being able to just like go everywhere with my camera, take some photos, drop my film off at a 12-hour lab, and have my results in an hour and send them off to some reporting agency. Like that would be awesome. So I guess that like raising awareness through like my lens would be like ideally like how I'd like to spend the rest of my life, especially on different like issues of accessibility to tons of things, but mostly drinking water, transportation, clean energy and food, housing.
That's great. I wish you every success in your dream.
Thank you.
So is everyone crying? I mean, that's incredible. And I mean, I just can't believe that you're 25 years old. And so it's so much wisdom and humility and I mean, sincerity, and the list goes on. So really appreciate it. I'm kind of at a loss for words. But this is what the Inspire is about. And so we're going to continue with this. And Jared, we'd love to have you back.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe we can work together to get like a film swap thing done. I think that would be pretty cool. I think that we could put it together.
We can start working on it. Yeah. And then Cynthia, are you there?
I am. I've been having trouble with my phone.
Oh, no worries.
But I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to say that I'm introducing you because next month we'll hear from you.
Okay, sounds great. You have me going after Jared, right?
Yeah, that's right. He's handing off the baton.
You did great, Jared. It was a great presentation today.
Thank you. I miss sitting next to you in class.
I know.
Every class we've had together, we've sat next to each other.
Yes, definitely. I hope all is going well with you.
And guys, I did not plan that for Jared and Cynthia to be right next to one another with these talks. But then Andrea, I just want to point out, you're going to visit with us in April. So thumbs up. So really, really great. If anyone has any questions, you can email me. I'll put my email in the chat. And again, we're streamlining all of this and, figuring it out as we go. But again, I'm going to stay on for a little bit, but I'll say goodnight to everyone. And thank you, Jared, if you can stay on for a little bit. And so we're good. Have a great week, everyone.
Great. Thanks a lot.